Welcome to another video
Welcome
in
to
which we're going to
our
solve another HackerRank problem. And in this video, especially, we're going to focus on Python decorators. There's a second decorator problem that we're going over. So before we get into the problem in question, what are decorators? Conceptually, what you need to understand is there's something called a higher order function in programming, right? And what these functions are, this is a concept related to functional programming. What these particular functions are, they are basically functions that act on other functions and take functions as input and act on them. Basically, they act or take input entire functions, basically. And that is the nature of when we talk about decorators, they're basically just higher order functions that act as on other functions or take other functions as their input. So why do we use them? Decorators are used because, quite simply, what we need to understand is that they're used to make sure that we can extend or act especially on certain code or certain functions without changing the entire utility of the function. We also need to remember that each function, if it's designed properly, must only have one purpose, must have only one thing that it solves. So potentially, if you want to solve another aspect into the from the output of a function, you add a decorator to it. So that's why decorators are used. So with that out of the way, let's move on to the question that we need to solve right now. Change the pen to bigger one. Good. Yeah. So let's move on to the question itself. So the question we have in this problem, which is called decorators to name directory, right? So we have a fixed function here, basically, which formats the name and returns the formatted name back, right? That is the function. We're adding a person lister function on top of that. What does this function ultimately need to do? This function needs to A, sort uh, the people by the list in the list by age, which is the third element in each sublist that is given to us, and B, it needs to apply a name format function on each of the persons in the sorted list. Basically, that's all we need to do, and then we need to return this value back to the main function, right? So we're getting the output that a function potentially creates and modify that output in a decorator and then send it back to the function itself. So basically, it's a relatively simple problem if we break it down like that. If we generally look at the name of the problem, decorators to name directory, again, like it immediately puts you on edge if you are not familiar with the problems in HackerRank or other platforms that, hey, maybe this is something that is complicated. This is not complicated, it's just a normal function. And that function is just acting on another function's output, modifying it, and sending it back, basically. That's all we're doing here. And that function is the purpose of that function is quite simple because number one, we just sort the values of that function. That's what we need to do. We need to sort the values by age, and number two, we need to basically format the output in a certain way as given in the function. So without a further ado, let's start coding this function out. So let's start coding this function. So first, in this function, to solve this function, we need to do the sorting aspect, right? We need to sort people by age. So we write a comment before to exactly specify what we're doing. Rather, we have a comment above. Let's just complete that comment instead. We have that comment out of the way. Now we know what we need to do. Now we need to build a simple sorting function. We can just do that in one line using the sorting function. We have the sorted function set up. Then we need to give it the value, which is the people value that's being sent to this function. Then we need to cite the exact sorting rules for this function as well. So we're going to write key lambda. And after X, we're going to give them our particular mechanism for sorting this out. With that out of the way, after I think this should pretty much sort the function in its entirety. The next thing we need to do in this particular problem is to apply the function f to each of the people in the list in the sorted list and return that result back. So basically we need to write as we're directly returning the value, we just write return and we just set everything up within that. We're using list comprehension, if that makes sense, to sort this out basically. And once sorted list is here, we apply the name format function on top of that. So let's set this up. With that, we're going to run this code, and this should solve this problem. As you can see, both test cases were cleared, and this is how you solve the closure within the closures and decorators topical area, the decorators to name directory problem. If you found any utility from this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or any problems regarding programming or coding, please let us know in the comments so we can focus on that and get a new video on that particular topic. With that, we're going to wrap this video up and see you on our next one. Thank you.